Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're unpacking the massive, deeply complex landscape of India's energy sector. Now, you might be wondering, why should we care? Well, because how India fuels its future directly impacts the entire global economy, and, for sure, our shared climate. We are taking a highly structured look at the absolute lifeblood of the Indian economy, coal. It's a wild story of incredible geological history, staggering modern demand, serious environmental crises, and a fascinating pivot toward a greener future. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. 1,047,000,000. That is the staggering amount of coal, in metric tons, that India mined in the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year alone. To put that into perspective, that's enough coal to fill a train wrapping around the equator multiple times over. Just let that number sink in for a second. India is the second largest producer and consumer of coal in the entire world, right behind China. This single fossil fuel is literally the bedrock of the nation's electricity generation and industrial power.
So here is our roadmap for today. First, fueling the Indian subcontinent. Second, a tale of two coals. Third, pollution and the mafia. Fourth, the shale gas alternative. And fifth, a greener horizon.
Part 1, Fueling the Indian Subcontinent. The sheer scale of India's energy demand.
To really grasp India's economy, you have to understand that coal physically and economically anchors the entire nation. I mean, over 73% of the electricity produced in India comes directly from coal. But here's the thing, this massive resource isn't spread evenly at all. Reserves are heavily concentrated. Look at the breakdown for the top three states. Jharkhand, with 86.2 billion tons, Odisha, with 84.8 billion, and Chhattisgarh, with 73.4 billion metric tons. These three eastern and south-central states alone account for almost 70% of the total known coal reserves in the whole country.
So, the crucial point here is a bit of a paradox. Despite ranking fourth globally in total coal reserves and mining over 1 billion tons domestically, India still imports roughly 15% of the coal it consumes. It's actually the second largest coal importer in the world. So, how does a country with so much coal right under its feet still need to buy so much from abroad?
That brings us to Part 2, A Tale of Two Coals. We're looking at deep geology and domestic limitations.
It turns out the necessity for those imports is actually rooted deep in the Earth's history. It's basically a battle of time and carbon. Indian coal is primarily divided into two main geological types. On one side, we have Gondwana coal. This is the older stuff, about 250 million years old, and it makes up an incredible 98% of India's total reserves. On the flip side is tertiary coal, which is much younger, only 15 to 60 million years old, and it suffers from high moisture and high sulfur content. Now, because Gondwana coal had an extra 200 million years to bake in the earth, it's technically the superior quality domestic coal. But even India's best coal has a major problem.
The root of the issue is what's known as the quality deficit. Even that older Gondwana coal has a very high ash content, sometimes up to 30%. Furthermore, its natural fuel value is honestly quite poor. On average, Indian coal yields about 4,500 kilocalories per kilogram, whereas coal imported from a place like Australia yields around 6,500. This means you have to burn a lot more Indian coal just to get the same amount of energy. Because of this high ash and low calorific value, it requires extensive washing, and crucial industries like steel plants that absolutely need high-grade coking coal are literally forced to rely on foreign imports.
Part 3. Pollution and the Mafia. The dark side of the coal industry.
As you can probably guess, burning lower-quality coal in such massive quantities inevitably takes a heavy human and environmental toll. The health impacts documented in our sources are severe. The high levels of particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide emitted from these plants are directly linked to asthma, cancer, and heart ailments in surrounding communities. And then there are the environmental tragedies, like the infamous Jharia coal field. Underground coal fires there have been burning unquenchably for nearly a century, filling the air with toxic smoke and displacing hundreds of thousands of people from their homes. It's truly devastating.
But the dark side isn't just environmental, it's also criminal. The state-owned mines in places like Dhanbad gave rise to a highly organized, sophisticated black market, the infamous coal mafia. To illustrate the extreme reality of this parallel economy, check out this quote derived from industry reports. Higher quality coal is sometimes selectively diverted, and missing coal is replaced with stones and boulders in railway cargo wagons. A human corpse has been discovered in a sealed coal wagon. That starkly highlights the harsh, organized crime reality that significantly impacts the reliability and safety of the Indian coal supply chain.
Part 4. The shale gas alternative. Looking deep for new energy sources.
So, with massive energy demands and the heavy burdens of the coal industry, where does India go from here? Well, now, what's really interesting here is the geography of the Kaveri Basin on the east coast. Estimates suggest India has up to 96 trillion cubic feet of recoverable shale gas reserves. Notice those specific yellow depressions, like the Ariala, Pondicherry, and Thanjavur subbasins? These are areas actively being assessed for massive shale potential, offering a very real domestic alternative to coal.
If we look at a cross-section of the Earth in that exact basin, you'll find the Satapati and Andy Madam formations sitting way down, between 7,000 and 13,000 feet below the surface. These thick layers of rock hold thermally mature shale, which basically means the organic matter within them has baked just right to hold valuable wet gas and condensate.
And hey, it's not just the Kaveri Basin. The Damodar Valley Basin, traditionally known for its coal, is also a major target. Underneath those coal seams lies the barren measure shale. Our sources note it sits perfectly in a wet gas and condensation window, featuring an average of 3.5% total organic carbon. Tapping into these deep shales could drastically shift India's reliance on coal imports. It could be a real game changer.
Part 5. A greener horizon. Navigating the transition to renewables.
Of course, shale gas is still a fossil fuel. But as a signatory to the Paris Agreement, India is actively mapping out a transition plan. And this brilliantly illustrates the government's 2023 to 2027 National Electricity Plan, which outlines concrete steps to shift toward a greener horizon. First, retiring 11,000 megawatts of older, heavily polluting 25-year-old thermal plants. Second, halting the construction of any new utility fossil fuel plants outside of those already being built. And third, committing to a massive 275,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2027. It's a massive shift, though it does require the remaining coal plants to operate with incredible flexibility to balance out variable wind and solar power on the grid.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Can India quit its oldest addiction? We've seen how coal literally powers the nation, the geological hurdles it faces, the heavy toll it takes, and the aggressive goals set for a renewable future. Transitioning a billion-ton-a-year economy while maintaining grid stability is a monumental task. What do you think? Can a just energy transition be achieved fast enough? Keep that question in mind as you watch the global energy landscape evolve. Thank you so much for joining me today on this explainer, and keep learning.